Good evening. Welcome to the Windsor Board of Education special meeting of Tuesday, August 29th. First order of business is to call to order and the Pledge of Allegiance, and then a moment of silence, so please stand. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated.
We acknowledge that Jolene is online and we're all present.
Good idea. Just want to let the public know that Ms. Galinsky, one of the board members, is participating, and she's online. I see her beautiful picture there in the back with her child. She's participating online. Next order of business is audience to visitor, and Ms. Daly, can you read your script?
Good evening. This is Robin Daly from the Superintendent's Office. If there is anyone from the public who would like to address the board, you may do so in two different ways. If you are using the Zoom application on your mobile device or computer, you may enter your comments into the Q&A feature located at the bottom of the Zoom menu bar, or you may raise your hand on your computer if your device has a microphone by selecting the participants icon on the Zoom menu bar and then clicking raise hand, or by dialing *9 on your phone. You will be given 3 minutes to speak. Please state your name and address. When you are called on, you'll be prompted with "You are now unmuted." For clear communication, we ask that you do not place the call on speakerphone. No comments can be made against the employees of the school district or children outside of your own.
Thank you. And for people here at the 2.5-minute mark, Vice President Lockhart will raise a red card indicating time to start wrapping up. And when it comes to the 3-minute mark, he'll hold it up and just keep holding it up, and we'll say, please, conclude your remarks. For people who are on the phone or online, he may have to break in to let you know when that 3-minute mark is up. And for people here, I think many of you may know, the audience visitor is not an interchange between the public and the board. It's an opportunity to ask questions or state things you want the board members to know about. And today, one of the big issues we know is, because it's on the agenda, is the mold issue at Oliver Ellsworth School. And this item was added to the agenda, which was set already for a couple of items that business we have to attend to. So unfortunately, a discussion of the mold issue at Oliver Ellsworth will only be after we've gone into executive session, then come back, and then there will be a discussion. People want to stay, you're more than welcome to stay or go and then come back, or go home, watch it on, I assume, TV or on your computer. That being said, are there anybody online who wants to address? I'm going to take people first in the room, but I just want to know we're set for about a half hour of time, and if we need to exceed that so everybody gets their chance to speak, there would have to be a motion by a board member, and I think that will happen, that we want to hear from everybody here, and we'd have to approve going over that half-hour period.
At this time, on the virtual end of the meeting, there are 2 attendees with their hands raised. There are probably about 30 people in the list.
Good.
I apologize, there's about 60 people in the list.
Okay, so at this time, folks that would like to address the board, please come in, sign, give us your names and address, and first come, first serve.
It's 6:11.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
My name is Karen Mendoza. I reside at 721 Kennedy Road. First and foremost, I would like to thank Mr. Panos and those who supported his motion to add this pressing issue to today's meeting and to the agenda, as well as a heartfelt thanks for the support shown throughout the past week. I'm a parent of a first grader at Oliver Ellsworth, and I stand here before you all to express my concern and outrage over the continuous mold issue at OE. I'm disappointed at the town's lack of transparency and lack of urgency in the matter. Our children's well-being is a huge part of their educational success. The teachers and administrators at OE are some of the best in this country. My child is thriving academically, emotionally, socially, and that is all thanks to his teachers, his paras, the principal, vice principal, Mrs. Fanfara at the front. Like, every single person in that building is amazing. They too deserve a safe and healthy environment. Based on the most recent photographic evidence that we received as parents directly from staff members, I would say that the building is not a safe and healthy environment. Respectfully, I ask of you, what is being done to remedy the issue? Can it be expedited? What were the test results, both previously mentioned as safe and the most current ones? Can we as parents get copies of those reports? Why were they allowed back into the building if the most recent testing results were not resulted yet? My son was out 16 days last year with illnesses. He had horrible coughs, fevers, severe congestion, but no one else in my house. We're a family of 6. No one else in my house was sick. My daughter was a 3rd grader at JFK, was not sick once last year. He hasn't been sick once all summer. I'm hearing the same from many other parents as well as staff. If the surfaces are being cleaned, but mold is visible again in a matter of days, that is indicative of a major problem that goes beyond using dehumidifiers. Are the HVAC ducts being cleaned? Have they considered alternatives like Hartford just did with one of their middle schools, like moving students to a safer building like here at LP, or using mobile classrooms? What are our options to keep our children and staff safe? Because ultimately, that is our priority. We as parents and taxpayers demand to know what is being done and why we are not told of the severity of the issue sooner. I find it appalling that the district statement stating the third-party testing results were within legal limits refers to a test done in September of 2022. We respectfully ask you, board members, to demand answers and actions and hold the superintendent and other town officials accountable for their lack of transparency and urgency. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else like to address the board?
Hello, my name is Nicole Archer Hardy, and I reside at 115 Pierce Boulevard. Okay, I just want to start off by saying that I feel that the Board of Education in the town has failed our children. We need answers as to why plans were not put in place to fix the issue this past summer. The mold concerns were brought to the board last fall. What didn't happen? What didn't happen to ensure all the necessary meetings and steps were put in place now? How are we just now having special meetings, building commission meetings that now have OE added to the list? Like, that doesn't make sense. And then why did it have to be presented to the town in order for any kind of movement to happen? 3 weeks before the start of school, knowing that not a whole lot is going to happen in 3 weeks. At this point, I feel strongly the children should not be required to sit in this environment for the next 9 months with hopes that it'll get fixed next summer. Telling us the results were within industry acceptable parameters. Again, if there's mold growing on surfaces, how is that acceptable? It isn't good enough for me. What is the board going to do to find alternative learning environments that are safe for our children, for the teachers, for all the staff? Too many parents have reported that their children were off several days from school, and they now link it to the mold. That's insane. I now have a kindergartner at OE. She, along with her peers and the entire OE population, they deserve better, and we need answers. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to address the board?
Hello, my name is Jennifer Delsky. I am the co-president of the Windsor Education Association. We thank you for this opportunity tonight to speak about this critical issue. Since learning about the effects of the mold over the summer, we have been communicating with OE teachers and working with the superintendent and administrators to address the myriad of concerns, starting with students, teachers, and other staff being able to return to a safe building. While the problems this summer appear to have increased significantly, we know that this is not a new issue, as this was brought to the board back in September of 2022. We also know that for years there have been concerns about the mold in this building. We are asking first and foremost for the board and town to act as quickly as possible to stop the underlying issues of this problem. We also believe that while we wait for the results of the recent testing, that the board in town should do its best to continue to accommodate any children as well as teachers and other staff with medical concerns. We also ask that the board in town do a full safety check of indoor air quality and a special review and remediation of mold in all of its school buildings in Windsor to ensure that children, teachers, and other staff are safe no matter where they work or go to school. Finally, in addition to ensuring the safety of our staff, we also ask that the board help teachers who have been financially impacted. In discussions with the OE teachers, we have learned that whole rooms were dismantled and materials and supplies that had been thrown out due to the mold and/or the humidity from the problems of the cooling system and the summer. The WEA, in partnership with our statewide association, the CEA, are and have been dedicated to resolving problems related to poor indoor air quality. The WEA is committed to working with the board and town to make sure all of our buildings are safe. Thank you for this opportunity to speak this evening.
Thank you. Anyone else like to address the board?
Oh, I'm late, but I would like to. And I apologize for my tardiness.
Amanda, if you could sign in and
Absolutely,
give your
Mr.
address.
Fury. My pleasure. And Mr. Fury, I don't know how this works. This is my first board meeting, and obviously I was late because I was still working. So if you could give me any instruction, I'd appreciate it.
You have 3 minutes.
Yep.
At the 2.5-minute mark, Mr. Lockhart will just kind of
Thank
give you
you.
raise it briefly,
Yes.
and then at the 3-minute mark, he'll hold it and then try to wind up your remarks.
Okay.
And I think we told people earlier, this is not a back and forth. I think
Yep.
you
I
knew
was there
about
for that
Yeah.
conversation, yes.
Okay.
I'm here as a parent of a child in that building who is special needs. He is autistic and nonverbal. He happens to also be a child that likes to lick
Sorry,
every...
Amanda, could you go back and,
Oh, sorry.
for the record, give your
Oh, I'm
name
sorry.
and
For the
address.
record, my name is Amanda Bean, and I reside at 103 Pleasant Street. I'm actually the parent. First of all, let me say this. I am the proud K-12 graduate of Windsor Public Schools, class of 2001. I chose to stay here and raise my family. I have a child in 10th grade at the high school who is thriving because of the amazing staff there. I have a daughter in the middle school who is thriving. I also have a little guy at OE who is doing amazing because of the administration and the staff there, and it comes straight from the top down. I will venture to say that Taryn and Kyle are the best two administrators in this district, and they are amazing. Now what I'm going to say is that the complete disregard for the mold situation is completely unacceptable, and for you to say that the mold was not from this year and the pictures were from last year is a complete and utter lie. There is evidence of it. There is mold in that building, and there are staff already complaining of headaches and not feeling well. There are 4 staff, is my understanding, that were out sick today. It's the second day of school. I'm going to venture to say that no teacher wants to be out on the second day of school. This is a significant issue. We recognize that all of the buildings in town probably have some component of mold because they're old buildings. I get it. I went to Pequannock School. It's pretty old. I know it's been rehabbed, but it's an old building. The concern is when the mold is actually seen at that point. So what I have been told by several experts and people that are environmental scientists, which I don't think Dr. Hill is, for the record, that the mold, when it's actually seen to the naked eye, that means it's a significant concern. And one of the pictures I saw that had been shared was a picture of somebody that had a mold reader in their room. And I actually sent that picture to an environmental scientist who specializes in mold abatement. Would you like to know what his response was? Well, even if you don't want to, I'm going to share. You have a 0.5 ppm formaldehyde top number and a decent amount of volatile organic compounds, which would be the second number on that picture. Not the best numbers, but could be from a number of things. Did someone have an open Sharpie near that monitor? No one believes that there was an open Sharpie near the monitor, by the way, because let's be honest, nobody in a K-2 school is going to have an open Sharpie near those children. The CO2 level is high. That environment light is letting you know the air quality isn't good. High carbon dioxide is noted. High formaldehyde, thank you, Mr. Lockhart. High total volatile organic compounds, TVOC, are noted. The CO2 number might actually be the worst. The CO2 number, carbon dioxide, might actually be the worst of the 3. So for our leader of our school system to be saying those pictures are from last year and not taking ownership of the building and the conditions, but furthermore not supporting the staff in that building, it's completely unacceptable. That's all I'd like to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else who'd like to address the board? Not seeing anyone else. Ms. Daly, anyone with their hand raised who would like to address the board?
Certainly. At this time, there are 2 attendees with their hands raised.
No anonymous, right? It's a no anonymous.
And both, you have names? Okay.
Ms. Savelli, you are now unmuted.
Thank you. Are you able to hear me, or should I just raise my volume?
You're fine.
Is this acceptable volume? Excellent, thank you. So, good evening. My name is Melanie Savelli, and I live at 24 Dudleytown Road in Windsor. Like many of the people here, my children attend Oliver Ellsworth School, and I'm extremely concerned about the negative effects of the mold in the building. While I appreciate the mitigation strategies currently being employed at the school, I'm left with many questions. Number 1, the statement from Windsor Public Schools indicates that a previous third-party mold air assessment indicated results within industry-accepted parameters. That's a direct quote. How far back was it conducted? Mold growth and its impact on indoor air quality can evolve over time, and it's essential to ensure that the conditions have not changed or escalated since then. And I know that there have been recent tests, but are there plans to continually assess the situation beyond this recent test? Number 2, according to the Connecticut Department of Public Health, there are no appropriate standards for indoor air quality in environments such as schools, office buildings, and residences. What then are the parameters being used to determine that the mold level is at an acceptable level? Even the Department of Public Health says that industrial standards should not be used for children, sensitive populations such as pregnant women, the elderly, or people with certain illnesses. This list certainly seems to include almost everyone at Oliver Ellsworth, especially considering it is an elementary school filled with children. Number 3, was indoor air quality testing performed in every room of the building, or were only certain areas tested? Is it possible that some areas are extremely unsafe, but the levels in unaffected areas brought down the average to a safe level? Once again, the lack of transparency makes it hard to trust the information. Number 4, on that topic of trust, why was it that a concerned teacher was the one to bring this to our attention? Why didn't we hear this from Windsor Public Schools or the Board of Education? How are we to trust that you're being upfront and honest about other issues? I'm beyond grateful for the diligence of this teacher's advocacy and all of the other teachers to ensure that Oliver Ellsworth is a safe environment. Parents and students aren't the only stakeholders here. As of this evening, Windsor Public Schools still has 44 vacancies. Why would anyone want to work in a district that dismisses the health of their employees? Additionally, why would anyone want to work in a district that withholds health and safety information from them? What no one seems to be addressing is why the mold problem was able to grow to this proportion when I believe the HVAC system at Oliver Ellsworth is less than 10 years old. I understand the Board of Education doesn't own buildings and that this is up to the town council to ensure the safety standards of our schools, including Oliver Ellsworth. According to the announcement by Windsor Public Schools, it is up to the town council now to recognize the severity and importance of the situation. So what do you recommend parents and citizens, excuse me?
I'm sorry, 30 seconds, Dr. Scully.
Thank you. So how can we as parents ensure that whatever repairs or replacements take place don't just act as a cheap placating Band-Aid that will actually fix the problem? So most importantly, what is being done now? A new HVAC system will not be installed overnight. And I see that some of the actions Windsor Public Schools are taking have been listed. But returning to my first point, without further testing, how can we be sure that these mitigating tactics are effective? And what is the plan if they aren't? As you can see, the mold issues at Oliver Ellsworth are alarming for a variety of reasons, so I urge you to consider the gravity of these concerns and take decisive actions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Daly, another person?
There is a phone number, which is now unmuted. Can you please state your name?
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we
Yes.
can. Can you state your name and address, please?
Yeah. My name is Tyler Wilson, 1 Kellogg Street. So, just to reiterate some of what other people have said, I have a child in OE currently and another that spent 3 years there. A number of times we've kind of just been confused as to why our kids seem to constantly be getting sick. You know, during COVID, obviously, you get to a point where, you're hypersensitive to the sniffles and the coughs and all that. But this is obviously, a lot more than that. And I think, honestly, between my wife and I, we feel, a level of guilt, actually, that we've, that we let it get this far without asking questions. And, I graduated Windsor High School in '98. I went all the way through the schools. There's so much that's great about this town, but this is a really, really, really bad look for us. It's bad look for the town as a whole. And add the health aspect to it. It's something that needs to be addressed. So I'm actually about to be walking into the town hall now. So I'll let other people speak. Thank you.
Anyone else, Ms. Daly?
Yes. Ms. Jackie S., you are now unmuted.
My address is 121 Bloomfield Avenue. And I just like to reiterate kind of just Jackie Shea, 121 Bloomfield Avenue. Again, just add upon what other parents have been saying. My son started at Oliver Ellsworth in preschool, so 2021. And just like other parents have been saying, he had an influx of a lot of health issues going on. And we actually did end up having him tested for, allergies. We had him tested for Lyme disease just because he had some medical stuff going on. And he did end up being tested for mold, positive for mold. And, obviously mold is everywhere. There's mold, outside. And I guess, for us, we were like, oh, thinking that, everything was being attributed to seasonal allergies. But then once winter comes, you're kind of wondering, why is my child still having symptoms? I guess my question to the board would be, My husband is an engineer. He's actually on his way to the other meeting. When the system was replaced in 2018, is there a reason why the fresh air system was not installed, which is to code? And I guess that would just be a question for the board and for the town as well, since that sounds like something that could also be potentially why the problem that's been happening seems to be getting worse in some sense. Thank you.
Ms. Daly, anyone else?
There is a written comment in the Q&A feature, which, with your permission, I will read.
It's got a name associated?
A first name, David.
No.
Okay.
Last name, yeah.
And that is it. There are no additional hands raised in the attendee list.
How much time do we have?
We have 9 minutes left. Out of the
Is
30 minutes.
anybody else here who may not have spoken originally, who's in the boardroom, would like to speak? Please come down. And if there's others, we'll probably have to extend the time, so we'll see.
I don't want to be like too repetitive. I was trying to eliminate stuff out of my notes that other people already said. My name's Diane Maluzo White. I live at 362 Park Avenue. I don't really want to, okay. Sorry, I just want to eliminate some of the things that were already said. So basically everything that everybody else already said from OE, as well as now that we're here, instead of like finger pointing of how we got here and why things weren't reported to us. I know that questions can't be answered right now, but just want to like put these questions out into the air so that they can like start being answered. One thing, we need to know the scale on which the mold was measured from last year that was deemed safe versus this year. Like, I would really like to see those reports, because whatever the safe levels were last year still left my kids sick. So I would like to have the opportunity to compare those two, because if it's close to what last year's levels were, then that's not good enough for my kids to be back in the building. Also, is it possible for us to get a second opinion done on the test? And can we appeal the safety of the test, like based off documented health records of sick children? Like, what percentage of OE children need to come forward with health records to appeal the test being done and their actual health being affected as deemed unsafe? Because the only way to get alternative buildings is for the building to be unsafe. We can't be deemed unsafe. We can't say, put us in another building, and then they're saying that it's safe still. So also my question is, and something that I think we need to work on in a town is, what relationships do we have with building owners that would be able to help us when we're in situations like this? Because, sorry, let me just catch my breath. Like, I noticed just this last week, Jamoki Academy quickly rerouted their kids over to the conservatory. They had a fire alarm issue. They move them right down the street. They're rerouted. Instead of going to their building, they're going to another building on Asylum Avenue as quick as that. We don't have that opportunity. We don't have those buildings. We should be in the process of we should have another building. It shouldn't be like all of our buildings are full. Like, why? We're the first town in Connecticut. Why don't we have another building? Why do we not have a space available in case of an emergency? Or we just tapped out if we have an emergency? That's crazy. And so I think we need to work on that. Either create relationships with building owners in case of emergencies, all those empty buildings over on Day Hill Road or something like that, or we need to we need to start the process of building a building for situations like this, because as everybody knows, our schools are old. This is not right now it's an OE problem. It could be
a Windsor High problem, a JFK problem, whatever down the road. We don't have backup. Where are we going? And that's it.
Thank you very much. Anyone else who'd like to address the board? If there is, we're going to have to extend the time.
There is another hand raised in the Zoom
You want
feature.
a motion to extend
We
for?
got room for one more
Okay.
under this current
Okay.
format.
Ms. Jacobson, you're unmuted.
Hi, this is Rebecca Jacobson at 50 Lighthouse Hill Road in Windsor. I would just like to echo what everybody else has said. It's not so much mold, as another person said, mold exists everywhere, and sometimes that's unavoidable. Some of these buildings are old and they're going to need repairs, and I don't find any of that shocking or any of that. But I do think where I'm most disappointed is how the district has dropped the ball on communication and transparency about the issue. This community is fantastic, and people immediately rose to the occasion to, help teachers out with supplies that were needing to be replaced and everything. But there was so much non-communication, like teachers not knowing whether they're going to be reimbursed for supplies. And I just, in a district like this, I just find that very disappointing, and I really, really, really think we could have done better. And like somebody else said, I mean, like, how are we we have positions that still need to be filled. How are we supposed to fill those positions? If stuff like this is in the news about us, like it's already hard to fill positions, and stuff that makes us look bad isn't helping us. And I just think so much of this could have been mitigated by better communication. And that is probably what I'm most disappointed about here. Thank you.
Anyone else who'd like to address the board?
If so, we have to extend.
If so, we're going to have to extend the meeting. Anybody online? Hand up?
There's no additional
Anybody here
individuals.
in the room? And without objection, from either side, close audience to visitor.
Yes.
Audience to visitors closed.
So how do you want to handle this? You want to handle this topic first, or you want to wait till after the Mr. President,
Yes.
my inquiry is, we have two agenda items that require us to go into executive session. And based off what we're hearing from the public, they're going to be looking for some action from us, some type of explanation, possibly from the superintendent, possibly the board chair, possibly the board. The actions that we have before us in executive session could potentially take us about an hour before we come back out and to take care of those two agenda items before we go to the agenda item of OE. So I guess we should query the board on what direction we should go. Should we go into executive session first, take care of that business, and come back and take care of the rest? Or do we take care of the OE issue first and delay the issues that we got before us in executive session? So that's the discussion I think that should be had now so that the public knows exactly what we're doing.
Okay. Mr. Panos?
So I'll yield to you, Mr. President. I'm sure Mr. Panos will probably want to speak on behalf of his caucus, and
Right.
I will cheerfully speak on behalf of mine.
Well, just to open the discussion, I'll just make a motion that we rearrange the agenda to place this item ahead. And can I have a second?
Is there a second?
So just so I'm clear of the motion, you're looking to bring agenda item number 4 to come after audience to visitors. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right, I'll second that motion.
Motion made by Mr. Panos, seconded by Mr. Lockhart. Do you want to speak first to the motion?
I'll just speak briefly then. Obviously the folks are here. This is an important issue, and I think that we have some ideas on what we would like to do, so I think it'd be appropriate, if we could get this done before we go into the executive session, because the executive session, it could be an hour and a half. We can't say, and so if the public is waiting for this urgent matter. I think it'd be in the public interest, to make the change.
You want to speak for our caucus, Mr. Lockhart?
I will yield and allow the caucus members to speak for themselves with the understanding that I'll be allowed to speak last before you.
Okay. Mr. Wollaston?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you to the public for coming out tonight and just expressing yourselves. We do have business that we have to get done today, but pressing times call for fast action and conversations like these to be held. So I do appreciate all the bold people who came forward to speak their piece, and I hope we can do something to help get this resolved.
Anyone else like to speak to the motion? Mr. Halleck?
Thank you, Mr. President. Obviously, this is a very serious safety matter for our students, our teachers, and our staff over at Ellsworth School. So I definitely feel that this should take a priority. We just heard from the public, so now I feel we should hear from the superintendent, and so we can all have a discussion about what we should do, if we should take action, or what we should do to take action in this matter. I feel that if we go into executive session, that's kind of a slap in the face to the public to have them wait an hour for us when they've been waiting for the last couple of days to hear from their board. That's what I'm saying.
Okay,
Thank you.
Anybody here? Ms. Cantor?
Thank you, Mr. President. I believe that we should allow the public to stay here and hear everything we have to say. I think it would be extremely rude and unprofessional for them not to hear our comments. This needs to be addressed. It's a safety issue, and it's been going on far too long without any results, I feel. Thank you.
Yes, okay.
Ms. Galinsky, and then Ms. Taylor. Is there anything you'd like to say, Ms. Galinsky?
There's a comment. I can't read it from here. Sorry.
She's unable to speak, I thought.
Okay.
Okay. Ms. Taylor?
I too agree with changing the order, but I would also feel that we need to be professional and lift the fact that we are having someone who is waiting to be interviewed for a position. And so I am just going to assume that person would understand why we are doing that, the severity of the situation. And I know Ms. Batchelder will probably have to do some shifting around in the background for that. But I do want to lift the fact that we are switching around because of the severity of the situation, and apologize to the person that we will have waiting.
Thank you. I appreciate those comments. Mr. Lockhart?
I yield.
Anyone else? I'm in support of the motion as well. I do feel sorry for the person who we have waiting for us, especially as it goes on to a later time. It's difficult to have to wait for an interview, and you've probably been waiting already. But we do have parents in the room. We have people watching. It sounds like a lot of people watching online who we may lose. So I will support this motion.
Takes 2/3.
Anybody?
It takes two-thirds.
Yep.
I think we're going to be fine.
So all those in favor of changing the order of business, motion made by Mr. Pano, seconded by Mr. Lockhart? Or was it Mr. Lockhart, seconded by?
No, it was Mr. Pano.
That's what I thought. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Abstentions? I don't know.
Ms. Galinsky says aye for the
Okay.
record.
Motion is passed 9-0-0.
Mr. President,
Yes,
are you looking for a motion to start the discussion?
I am.
All right. For the stenographer, I will email you this motion. It's a long motion, so I don't want you to have to try to write it all down.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Mr. President, I move the following. I move that the superintendent of Windsor Public Schools, along with the town manager, one, appoint a project manager and team to provide regular updates for the town council, Board of Education, and Oliver Ellsworth staff at least weekly. And if something important comes up, those updates be timely. Further, appoint a spokesperson for the updates for the public. Further, provide a dedicated section on the Windsor Public Schools website about Oliver Ellsworth that includes timeline of what happened, what is proposed to happen, and documentation. Further, hold a forum for Oliver Ellsworth's families, staff, and teachers that includes town manager, superintendent, vendors who conducted evaluations, and subject matter experts. Further, provide an understanding of possible solutions for children and teachers for the school year and costs, inclusive of portable classrooms, changes in locations for sensitive students and staff, specialized cleaning, testing, additional dehumidifiers, modifications to existing equipment to mitigate mold formation, etc. And this is to be in collaboration with the town manager.
Second that motion.
Motion made by Mr. Lockhart, seconded by Mr. Panos.
So, Mr.
Discussion, I'll
Yes, sir.
lead to the maker of the motion.
Yes, thank you very much. So, I want to thank the public for coming out and being very, very rightfully so agitated and upset about this particular situation. This has been a situation that has not happened overnight, and unfortunately will not be resolved overnight. I'm of the opinion, along with the minority leader, that that the district did provide us with timely updates back in, I believe, if I'm going off my memory, November of 2022 meeting, letting us know exactly what was supposed to be going on, gave us an update what was going on over that summer, and how we were supposed to be progressing with the town to this point. I'm understanding that we definitely have aged infrastructure. I'm also understanding that this has been a problem for quite a long time. This is something that, has eroded the public trust of the Board of Education as well as the district office. That is something that's quite frustrating, considering that I am of the belief that this Board of Education, no matter who has sat in these seats from 2016 to this point, has done everything that they were supposed to do legally to make sure that business was conducted and passed it on through the proper channels to be addressed. For the public, I want to make sure you understand very clearly that as Board of Education members, we care deeply about what happens in our district, but we have lanes that we stay in legally, and that we are supposed to do things decent in order and make sure we pass it through the proper channels. I truly believe that this Board of Education have done that. There's definitely documentation that would support that when we were discussing this, definitely during budget processes, we always discuss the physical plant. If there was any catastrophic failures, this is something I would consider as a catastrophic failure, especially that this unit was recently placed on the building in recent history. I also want to make sure that we acknowledge the fact that if there are any equipment that has been destroyed or damaged during this process, this is something that can go through the building administrator and then work its way up the chain. So to see that that's not the case, that is something that the superintendent can speak on. Also, the fact that we are even here is very, very disappointing. As a Board of Ed member, I think I've been here the longest through this process, so I guess I can say this with speaking for me. I've been here since 2016 during this process, and I have trusted all the information that has been presented before me, and I have no reason not to trust it at this point unless I'm showed differently. So I want to make sure I'm very clear about that. I made educated decisions based off of what was presented at that time and trusting all the subject matter experts that was actually doing what they were doing. With that being said, we have a lot of work to do. I'm not going to sit here and to point fingers about where the breakdown in communication was, and I'll be very clear with you. I know what's going on behind the scenes. I really do. But at this point, this is not a time for finger pointing. This is a time where we come together and provide leadership, collaboration, and make sure that at least this Board of Education can earn back the trust of the citizens and the staff, and that's what we're working to do. This is, again, something that didn't happen overnight, and this is something that we're not going to be able to solve overnight. But this is a very, very tough situation, and we need to make sure that we, as a board, are very supportive of the one person that we supervise is the superintendent, and that we provide him direction that we would like to see as a board, and to make sure that we support him in that direction. So, and during this motion, if there's a second opportunity to speak, I will reserve my right to speak at that time.
Thank you. Next person who'd like to speak to the motion? Mr. Panos?
Yes, I'll just speak briefly that, like I say, it's time for action. It's time for, updates. And I think the administration is willing to do that. That's what we're asking for. It would be good to have, some behind, some other meetings with the executive committee to ask questions. But we need to have the communication to the public on a regular basis, so that's why we're asking for essentially weekly updates on all things that have been done and are planned shortly. And I think that there are things that can be done with the existing equipment, and there are two things that happen. It's just you have a town side and you have a Board of Ed side, and sometimes there, communication gets shut down, or it gets garbled, and things don't get done that should be. And so it's up to us to just pull together and to recognize that this is, potentially a very serious problem. If there are things that we can do for the more sensitive percent of the population, staff and students, I think we should move ahead with that. I think we're going to get support from the town council for it. It's going to be some money, more than we have budgeted for, but I think we can count on the town council to come up with this. And we put some concrete things in here, some suggestions, and we'll get an engineering evaluation, and some of us will be able to ask close questions of these consultants to make sure that this, doesn't continue, or that essentially that we can shut this down, let's say, as fast as we can. And I'll be in support of this motion. I look forward to a presentation if Superintendent will make it. Thank you.
Ms. Claes?
I'm in support of the motion. I would just like to add that in the motion, I think it said a project manager. I would encourage us to consider an incident command manager, and using the incident command structure that exists and that is nationally accepted. We probably have trained incident commanders in our town, probably most likely in the fire department. It would be seen as a third party that is trained and also is concerned with public safety and welfare. And they could be somebody who works as a bridge or in a liaison between the Board of Education and the Town Council to make sure that we are really working with Oliver Ellsworth at our best, with them at the center of what we're doing. I would encourage us to do that. I would also encourage us to then eventually morph into having an update on the websites that is environmental safety for all schools, and having an annual environmental air quality, a full, robust assessment of every school in our district at some point in the year, so that we have that and all those results published. So I would just encourage us to do those two things too. And I think we really have to really consider the urgency that parents are feeling and teachers are feeling. And so we need to figure out what is the response going to be, like when is that going to happen? So I would just like to add that. Thank you.
Mr. Wollaston? Ms. Cantor?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm very concerned. I'm a licensed healthcare professional. I'm highly allergic to mold, and I'm very disappointed that this has happened, and I'm concerned of every staff member's safety in the building, as well as all children. No child or staff should be exposed to that and be suffering the illness, because it can result in long-term damage done to them, and taking medications to prevent it also impacts other systems. So I'm asking that the students and staff get moved to another location for teaching immediately, and working with a project manager, as Ms. Claes had said, because we can figure things out after. You can't figure out things when you're making kids sick, and no one should have to suffer like this. So that's what I'm asking, for immediate resolution, for a temporary situation, for our children and staff to teach and learn and keep these kids and the staff in a safe place. Moms and dads and guardians should never have to worry that they're sending their children to a school that's not being safe for their kids. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wollaston?
First, I'd just like to commend our board, all 9 of us, just for our ability these past few days to really come together and hone down on this. We are of different political parties, some of us, and we oftentimes have polarized views, but we were able to come together and say something really has to be done here. I feel like the number one thing for me has to be communication. There are so many breakdowns in communication, whether between us and town council or whether it be just between the district and the parents, and the quality of the communication that was spread as well. I really think we're far past the point of saving face and of easy way outs. We have to really figure out what must be done to really rectify this for our parents. I just again want to say I'm really grateful that we were able to come together and put together this motion. I will be voting in support of this motion, and I think it really is what we need to start setting things right in the correct direction.
Ms. Taylor?
Thanking our parents again. Some of you I know personally, your children and everything, and nothing is worse than hearing, something like this, and especially when you had your own children go through the same school rather recently. I want to piggyback on what Mr. Williston said about the motion and coming to specifics and really lifting up what we want to see done and the urgency we want to see it. Everything that you're going through, honestly, if we could clean it ourselves, we would, but what we can do future forward is to be more proactive. I just know, I think back around all the budget seasons, and Vice President Lockhart always is physical plant, physical plant, physical plant. And I think we say that, but what we have to realize is our buildings are old, right? I grew up in Windsor, and I went to these same schools as well, right? And you want to think about, just taking care of the buildings, because that is the house that holds the education system, and the kids cannot learn if they're not well, and teachers cannot teach if they're not well and they have to be home. So it's honestly a domino effect. We've been dealing with this as you have. We're taking your phone calls, we're fielding them, but there's nothing we can do besides apologize for all the things. Even when things were out of our control, I appreciate you all taking the time to come out. This isn't easy, this isn't fun. But I know there's some things that we could probably do to flush out future forward communication and transparency. And again, thanking you so much for your patience and your candor during this difficult time. And I think we have some updates to the motion, I believe, or some. I don't know.
I mean, members could either ask to amend the motion, or they can have a separate motion after this to include other ideas, and we can debate that as well.
You want to let Dr. Hill speak first?
Yes, I would like to have Dr. Hill, and then we'll also potentially have a second bite at this.
You want to speak? I think Mr. Howard.
Mr. Howard, did you speak?
Oh,
I have not spoken.
sorry, Mr. Halleck.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm also going to be in support of the motion. We have many students and staff who are very sensitive to mold issues. So I think we definitely have to prioritize getting those students to a different location within our district. I think that is very important. Communication issues. Yes, there's been a lot of them. I'm not going to point fingers tonight. Tonight is definitely not the time to do that. There will come a time, I'm sure, when we have that discussion, but it's not now. I definitely support weekly updates to the community. I would even ask, that maybe down the road we offer our either the media or somebody to go into OE so that we can show the public to make sure that it's safe, that all that mold has been cleaned, and and it's not an issue. Obviously, we have, a ways to go before we get there, but, I think transparency is very important. We're definitely a board of 9. We're all held accountable here for this. So, but I will be in support of this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Hill, before we have a second round here, would you like to speak either to the motion or speak about the situation here?
If I may, Mr. President, Ms. Galinsky made a statement online. If you'd like me to read it, I can.
Yes, please.
Certainly. My son attended OE last year for preschool and was out over 30 days for unexplained fevers lasting 10+ days, over 104 degrees, others shorter. No healthcare professional was able to determine what caused the fevers as he was tested for COVID, flu, strep, etc. Now I wonder, could this have been caused from mold? I support this motion to move forward. I thank parents and staff for continuing to push the issue to make sure that we continue to keep all students, staff, parents, etc. safe and healthy. I ask that we continue to provide communication to all regarding the small steps, large steps, and future steps being taken to remedy this issue. Transparency is key. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Galinsky. Dr. Hill.
So, good evening, and I thank everyone for speaking. I find myself in a very difficult situation here. I have not ever lied to my community, and I haven't started to. Tomorrow night at my coffee talk, you're all welcome to come, and we can have a much deeper discussion. This is a political body here, and it's going to operate as such, and my coffee talk is not a political conversation. So what I will say is I am looking forward to the board supporting all of these things that they're recommending. It is clear to me that there are a lot of things that are not clear to the community. The superintendent of school is always the first forward-facing person in a community. I get that. There are so many other things that are at play, and I just will continue to say I have never lied to my community nor overlooked the health and well-being of my staff and students. And again, tomorrow evening, we will have a conversation. And I understand we have folks upset. I'm not here to argue your feelings at all. I am not here to contest your feelings. I am here to say that I have continued to work to deal with this issue. And I know people are not hearing that's a longstanding issue and folks are not actually discussing that. I will leave you with that. So this issue predates me as superintendent. And I have done nothing but try to address it when I became aware of it last year. I'm always a straightforward person, so I'm not going to get into an argument about people's emotions and gestures. I understand that. You can come to the coffee talk tomorrow, and we can have a very open, non-political conversation. And you will have facts. And all the data that can be shared will be posted. We've already started to post. As you see, there's a DPH, I call it a white paper up, to provide information. There's no information being hidden. Everything will be shared, and then you make your own decisions. But the point of the matter is that we have to fix the situation so that everyone's safe. That has been my only concern, and that continues to be my concern. And I am okay dealing with the fervor that's coming as long as we get things fixed. And I want to thank Ms. Chappell for coming forward, as I was the one, as her boss, to encourage her last year to come forward and speak. And again this summer, I encouraged her to speak to town council. So the public should hear that. It is unfortunate that I've been accused of being dishonest. I can't tell you, that I'm not bothered by that because that's never been anything associated with me. But I understand when emotions get involved, people have to blame someone. So I'm that person right now. But we're going to fix the situation. And again, tomorrow we have a much clearer conversation. And that's all I'm going to say this evening.
Ms. Claes? Yeah.
Dr. Hill, I just have a couple of questions, and it's not about what we're going to do or who did what or anything, but can you just help me to understand, I know there was that study that was done last year that had said that it was appropriate for students to be in the building, but I believe there was another study done recently, and are those results in yet?
So, yes, as I said, everything will be posted to the site. And there were, Ms. Batchelder, how many studies were actually done? Because I keep hearing one. There was more than one time that we've called in the environmental company.
Yep. So we've been doing studies since 2014. We've actually called OSHA on ourselves, if you will, to help us figure out what the problem is. And over the past year and a half, we have been working diligently with a few different vendors on the Board of Ed's budget to figure out what the humidity levels are and why we can't regulate them, because it all goes back to not being able to regulate the humidity in that building. And the latest report, we literally got back today at 2 p.m. I mean, it came into my email maybe between 1 and 2. I don't remember exactly. So we have approximately 8 or 9 actual assessments in writing done from different environmental companies throughout the past few years.
Yeah, she wants to follow up question, sure.
So in those 8 or 9 reports, do they just report on the quality, or do they make a determination about whether it's appropriate for students and staff to be back in the building? How is that decision made? I'm just trying to understand.
Sure. So every report that we've gotten back, and we always do this in the summer, because again, this has been an issue for years, since when I first came, this was an issue. And the reports, when they come back, we get an overall summary, and the summary always says that it is conducive to have staff, students in the building, and that there is more mold outside than there is inside. That's been a common statement we've heard from all of the environmental companies. We've done visual, we've done actual infrared. We just did a more detailed one this past couple weeks, which is the one that came out this afternoon. And in that one, we actually asked for every single classroom, space, corner, cubby, cabinet to be tested. Prior to this, those assessments were done on the areas that we were able to actually see mold growth during the summertime months.
I have one last question.
Yes.
So I appreciate that you're going to publish all those, so that's awesome. Thank you very much for doing that. My last question is, I believe that I read in the press that the health department, the Windsor Health Department, said it was safe for students to be in the building. So how did they make that assessment? Did they go into the building, or did they just read the reports, or how is that assessment reached by the health department?
I don't want to answer 100%. All I can answer is I was asked to send again all of the reports that they've seen. So I resent everything to the town, and they reviewed everything again. And then the one we've received again this afternoon, I sent directly to the town again.
All right, so that quote must have come directly from the health department based on whatever they did with the reports. Thank you very much.
Mr. Panos?
Yeah, I'll just ask I don't know if you can answer this, but for a certain percentage of our students who may be more sensitive to this, based on medical evidence or something like this, do you think that we have room, let's say, at Pequannock to be able to handle this? Can you possibly answer that question right now? If for example, it's 5 or 10%, if it's that much, I don't know, 20 or 30, 20 kids.
So I'm not aware, Mr. Panos, of a percentage of students. I have addressed a few families that have come and met with me or contacted me, and so I'm not sure of what number. But as we reported to the board previously as well, like our schools are full. So and we've also concurrently, there's been a study, as we shared with the board last year, go on, to tell us how much room we have in our buildings. So it's not really like there's a lot of room to say, hey, everyone can go here. That's why I'm glad to hear the board say they're open to finding alternative space. That would mean us, obviously we would have to probably rent portable modules or something else, but there's just not like, I can't just say that in any of the other, 5 buildings, there's this much space for an unknown number of students.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else? Oh, is that okay for,
Yeah.
normally we
it's
don't,
just a- it's
I just want to make sure.
It's just a matter of, she has the floor now.
I don't want to say I didn't do it for you another
No,
time.
no, this is, you have the floor, you
Ms.
can ask
Clay.
all the questions you want without asking him.
The President Panos says you can talk.
So if we had a rough estimate, I'm assuming there's sections of the building that are perhaps more clearly compromised than other sections. So if we had to create portable classrooms, or what are we talking about? 6 classrooms, gym space, like what are we looking at to move the children that are in those most difficult areas? Do you know, or would we have to?
That's not information that we actually
Okay,
have.
that's fine, that's fine,
not-
yeah.
I don't know. Like I said, the report will be put out. I don't know that there's a more difficult area, or I don't know at all.
And how many classrooms are there in OE?
How many classes are we?
20.
Thank you.
Done?
Anyone else? Mr. Lockhart.
So I just, as making a motion, I just want to first thank Mr. Panos and I. We've been working feverishly at this, I believe, since Friday evening into today. It's been difficult to get the consensus of the 9 to where we are. The motion is very broad to allow authority and flexibility to whether it's a project manager or incident commander. As a firefighter, I appreciate that concept quite well. But I think we should leave the autonomy on how that structure looks like to the town manager and the superintendent, and allow them that flexibility to operate within the structure. I'm appreciative of the concept of moving all the people out of that building, but where do we move them to? So therefore, what we're proposing, that will allow the autonomy between the town manager and the superintendent to find that said space to make sure that we can actually put them in a very comfortable space that's conducive for education. So a lot of these questions could be answered within that structure, with the understanding that the superintendent will work closely with us through that spokesperson, and that person will also be working closely with the town council and the town manager as well. This is a very, very sensitive and urgent situation that we need to get in front of. I'm very hopeful and supportive that we know we don't have an open checkbook with the town council, but we also understand that we have to do right by every single soul that come in our buildings, and specifically right now OE. And we could potentially get down this path and they see that other buildings might have the same situation. So that's why the structure that we're proposing will be able to encompass all of that. So I will be in support of this motion. Mr. Panos, thank you very much. This is, for the public, this is not a political issue at all. If there was times where we've put our politics, our policies, our philosophies to the side, this has been one of those times. We understand what's going on here, and we know it didn't happen overnight, but we're trying to resolve the situation. This didn't happen overnight. There's a lot of documentation that will suggest that it did not happen overnight, that there was a lot of pushback from this board. There was a lot of pushback from the superintendent. A lot of documentation provided and discussed during budget processes, discussed during our finance committee meetings, discussed during the presentation to the town councils. Should I have been more forceful? Okay, I'll own that. That's some criticism that I can take. But one thing that I think that I've always said was, I'm concerned about the physical plant. I'm concerned about the fact of the lack of dollars that we are contributing to major maintenance within our budget for each school year over year, because all it's doing is just putting Band-Aids on stuff instead of taking care of the normal wear and tear, break and fixes throughout the year. We got to make sure that whatever the teachers have spent to this point, because during the budget process, I'm very clear, teachers in the town of Windsor, where we have the ability to pay and have a very robust budget, Teachers shouldn't be paying anything out of their pockets to replace anything. And if that's going on, that's something that I do not like. I've always said it publicly, I don't like it, and it shouldn't be happening now. So if there's anything that any of these OE teachers have spent out of their pockets, I am trusting with all my heart that that is going up the proper chain of command and it's going to be taken care of. I only supervise one person with the collective 8, and that's the superintendent. So I'm not going to be supervising anybody else, but that is the desire of one board member to make sure that that happens. At the end of the day, Ms. Cantor, I appreciate your comments about moving these kids and these staff immediately, but we got to make sure that we do it in a very ethical and responsible way, and it's got to be in concert with the town council, because they're going to be the ones that's probably going to be supporting the lease, supporting the maintenance of that building, supporting a lot of that infrastructure that we have not had appropriated by the town council yet. So that's why I support this current structure, to allow the 2 top heads work that structure out and report back to both entities so everybody knows what's going on at the same time. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. I'm in support of the motion. My wife was a long-time teacher at Oliver Ellsworth School. We've heard about the mold problem. Just recently, expeditedly on a Saturday, had a meeting with the structures of executive committee here from the board, as well as the executive committee from the town, including the mayor, deputy mayor, and the minority leader who's in the room tonight. So when he hears about some of these costs passed on, he can talk to his brethren about that. In fact, some of them are, yes, and sisters. In fact, there's a public building commission going on right now, and I believe the town council will probably take up this issue at their next meeting, I think September 5th. It was good, again, to hear parents after Saturday. If we talked of hearing parents, and if my child was sick for a long time, I probably would have pulled them from the school, or I would have been asking those questions. So I get that. I get that very much. And we do have to do better. And I think we've learned a lot from this about speaking up, about maybe bothering the town council a little bit more when things weren't moving on that, but that's a lesson learned. I like the idea, too, here of testing all of our buildings. We have been told there's mold in almost every building anyway, but we clearly need to get ahead of it. And as others have said, the importance of communicating to parents, so parents are not in the dark. It sounds like they were for too long, and we want now for people, we want the town members, but more specifically staff and parents, to know what's going on in the building. So I think it's great that we are all in unison here on where this is going. So with that, I'd like to call the question. This motion's been made by Mr. Lockhart. Have you given a copy or sent a copy to Ms. Daly?
I will send a copy to her. Yes.
Because I know it was a variation. We were working on a couple different motions. Thank you, Mr. Panos and Mr. Lockhart, for kind of leading that charge, and for Ms. Clace in particular, too, from our side of the aisle. So motion made by Mr. Lockhart, seconded by Mr. Panos. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Waiting for Ms. Galinsky online. She votes aye.
Okay. Abstentions? None. Motion carries 9-0-0. Next order of business is probably your motion.
Mr. President?
Yes, Mr. Lockhart?
I move that the Board of Education go into executive session for the purpose of agenda item, I believe it's now 4A, to interview the candidate for the Director of Pupil and Special Education Services, and for item 4B, to discuss the collective bargaining agreement between the Board of Education and the United Public Service Employees Union, UPSEU, and with the Windsor Board of Education Paraeducators, Local 424-Unit 59, while inviting Dr. Terrell Hill and Ms. Danielle Batchelder to be part of the discussions before taking possible action in public session.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Motion made by Mr. Lockhart, seconded by Mr. Panos. Any discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions? I'm assuming that's to her motion.
She's aye.
Yep. So motion carries 900. We are going to executive session at 7:21.
Will someone be in here?
She said, yeah.
We all set? We are back in open session at 8:56. Looking for a motion.
Move to offer Mary Cristofaro the position of Director of Pupil and Special Education Services.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Motion made by Mr. Lockhart, seconded by Mr. Panos. We are going to have a roll call vote, but before that, is there any discussion? And on a roll call vote, if you want to explain your vote, you're free to do so. Seeing no discussion, Ms. Daly, can you take us to the next step?
Absolutely. Jill Cantor,
Yes.
David Fury,
Yes.
Julian Galinsky,
Yes.
Jeremy Halleck,
Yes.
Darlene Clace,
Yes.
Leonard Lockhart,
Yes.
Paul Panos,
Yes.
Ayan Taylor,
Abstain.
Nathan Wollaston,
I abstain.
work in the district.
7 yes, 0 no, 2 abstentions.
Welcome.
You want to take a picture with everybody like we normally do?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure, yeah, that'd be great.
Want me to go there? No, they'll all stand, you go up right in the middle.
I'll go right up in the middle, okay.
Should we all go up, or are we okay behind her?
No, that's Dr. Nelson Rivera, my work family, Dr. Nelson Rivera. I thought we were Independence.
Why don't we all go up there?
Yeah, I think it'd be a better picture.
Julian, please come.
Yeah.
Can we Photoshop her in?
We'll Photoshop, I'm sure.
Come on in. Want to stay here at the board? Right there.
Yeah.